Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, I will show you how we can add Power Apps in SharePoint Pages as web parts. I will cover both the types of Power Apps, standalone SharePoint based Power Apps and SharePoint List Form customized based Power Apps. We will add them in modern SharePoint Pages and also create scenarios around connected web parts with these types of Power Apps. So let's check it out in action. In a modern SharePoint communication or team site, for lists and libraries, we can leverage Power Apps either to customize the form experience or to create a standalone Power App that can be accessed through the Power Apps mobile app. For this modern SharePoint site, I will go ahead and create a list. I'll leverage the issue tracker Microsoft List template and create a list. In the ribbon experience for the list, we have the option to integrate it with Power Apps. I will create a standalone Power App by leveraging the Create an App option. Here I can enter the name of my Power App and click Create. This will go ahead and create a simple 3-screen Power App experience, which will allow us to see all the items in that SharePoint list, create, read, update, and delete items. Here is the 3-screen app. I can preview this, add an issue, fill out the details of the issue, and submit. The items that I'm creating through the Power App will be added directly to that specific SharePoint list. The Power App is a standalone Power App, so I can access it from the mobile experience so users can interact with the data of the list. However, in the SharePoint list, if I was to create a new record or edit existing records, the form experience that will launch would still be the standard SharePoint form experience. I'll create another list. I'll pick the content scheduler list template and create the list. For this list, for the integrate Power Apps option, I will select customize forms. This will customize the list form experience only by leveraging Power Apps. The app will be a single screen app that will have a special object that is called SharePoint integration that has the context of the item that the user will select in that SharePoint list. In the form experience, I can select the fields from my SharePoint list that I would like to showcase on the form, add those fields, maybe change the theme, and once I'm done customizing my form, I will save and publish this customized form experience to SharePoint. Back to my SharePoint list, if I was to create a new item, my customized form experience by leveraging Power Apps will load directly inside that list context. There is no standalone mobile app for this. I can fill in the details of the form here, click Save, and that information will be recorded in my SharePoint list. I can select the item, which will launch the form experience once again and show the details in view mode. I can click on Edit to make updates to my list item. Now, once we've leveraged Power Apps and connected it to our list or libraries, either using the customized form experience or the standalone experience, there are various scenarios in which you would like to leverage them in SharePoint Pages. I'll create a new page. In a modern SharePoint page, we have the ability to add web parts. One of the web parts is Power Apps. I'll go ahead and add this web part to my modern page. All this web part expects is the app web link or the ID of the app. To grab the app ID for our standalone Power App that we created, I will head over to make.powerapps.com, and here is my IT issue tracker Power App. I will head over to 3 ellipses and go to details. Here, I have the web link and I have the app ID. Copy this app ID and paste that app ID right here. My Power App will play directly in the context of the modern SharePoint page. Right at the bottom, and this is a tough one to spot, there is this little circular option which allows you to change the size of this web part. This Power App was built with the mobile experience in mind. And that is why the dimensions of this app adheres to the mobile experience. Now I'll take an example of a Power App that's created with the tablet dimensions. Change the ID of the app. I can change the size. I will republish. And here is my leave request Power App that is added as a web part in a modern SharePoint page. If you've built a standalone Power App keeping responsive design principles in mind, here I have a help desk Power App that is responsive in nature. I can set my web part width on my web page and publish. A modern SharePoint page itself is responsive in nature. So if I was to reduce the width of this page, you will observe how that web part width also shrinks, and along with that, since my app is responsive, it is automatically repositioning the elements on the screen. Now to add Power Apps that are customized by leveraging the list form experience, these apps will not show up in make.powerapps.com. So how do we grab the ID of that app to add that information in the Power Apps web part? For the list form customized experiences, if I head back to customize forms, which will take me back to the Power Apps Studio experience, if I go to File, there is an option for me to go and see all versions. This will redirect me to make.powerapps.com where I can see all the versions of my app. I can switch to details and grab the ID of the app. I will plug that ID in here. And we have our list form customized Power App in action right here. However, there are challenges. These run in the context of the SharePoint list experience. I have the option to select the context of the item, so it shows me the data related to that item, and then I can make modifications to it. In the case of the web part that I added, I have no option to select the context of the item. And it always shows the first item that is in my SharePoint list. Plus, I don't see any buttons here to submit the updates that I make in this form experience. I will edit my modern web page. For the section in which this web part is placed, I'll change the layout of the section to 1/3 right. My Power Apps web part, I'll place it on the right hand side. And in the left hand side section, I will add a list, and that would be my content scheduler list. I'll republish this page. So right here, the user can make a selection. These two web parts are not connected to each other. To create connections between web parts, the web part must support that feature. For example, the list web part, if I was to edit its properties, you will observe it has the ability for dynamic filtering, wherein I can filter the items of this list based on an item that I selected in another list or library that is added to the same page. But if we look at the Power Apps web part, it does not have the option for dynamic filtering. So I will go ahead and delete the Power Apps web part. There is another web part here called Embed, which allows me to embed code. And that code will be in the form of an iframe. And that iframe could load my Power App. Right on the top right-hand corner, I have more options. Here, I can connect to a source. The source is another list or library on this page. I have my content scheduler list. I can connect to that list. So when the user makes a selection in the content schedule a web part, that selected item context will be available in the Embed Web part. And to read the dynamic values from my list web part, if I click on Learn More, it will take me to the documentation related to the Embed Web part. Here, there's a section called Display Dynamic Content by Connecting to Another Web part, which is exactly what we are doing. And there is a link to an example. So let's select this. Here, there's a section that shows how to connect an Embed Web part to a list web part. It has all those same steps that I took, which is connecting to source, connecting to our list. The key point here that we want to focus on is how to read dynamic content from that selected item in the list. So if you need to read any column value of that selected item in the list web part, all we have to do is use the following notation, which is an opening square bracket, the dollar symbol, and then the internal name of the column that we want to read. In our case, I will grab the ID of my list item, and that I can pass as a parameter to my Power App that I will embed right here. My Power App is a customized list form Power App. For the form control, if we focus on the item property, if there is no context to SharePoint, which is the case when we add our web part, it goes ahead and picks the first item in that list. If it is running in the context of SharePoint, then it will grab the selected item in the list. So the change we need to make is right here. Instead of picking the first item, I would like to pick it from a parameter that I will be passing to this app. If I will use the isBlank function on the parameter that I would be passing, which is called ID. If this is blank, I will leverage the SharePoint integration object dot selected. Else, I'll use the lookup function on my connected list where the ID is equal to the parameter that's coming in, which is param ID. The parameters always come in as strings. ID is a number column in my SharePoint list, so I will typecast this by using the value function. Let's go ahead and save this customized list form and publish it back to SharePoint. If I head back to my page, for the embed code, I will plug in the iframe tag, and it needs the source, which is the link to my Power App. And that link would be as follows: apps.powerapps.com/play/the ID of the app. Grab the ID of the customized list form. We can go to see all versions, details, and here's the app ID. I'll plug in that ID here. I need to pass the parameter to this app. Question mark, the parameter name was ID, is equal to the selected item of this list web part that is now connected to the embed web part. And to get that, under square brackets, put the dollar symbol and the name of the property that I want to read from that connected web part, which is ID. The iframe needs a width and a height that you must define. If I look at my Power App, my screen, go to width, select the formula, the width is 444, the height is 790. I'll plug in that information and close the iframe tag. Now once I do this, it's important that you click out of this and wait for the page to be saved. So once you get that message that your page has been saved, go ahead and publish. The embed code initially will not show any information. That's because you have to make a selection in the connected web part. The moment I make a selection here is when the Power App will load in context. Now let's go ahead and select Dataverse Relationships. The moment I do that, I can see that experience light up right here. If I head back to the list experience, this will continue to work as is. Based on the selection I make, that specific item will load. I have the option to make updates and save my changes. But in the connected web part context, I do not have that save button option. In my customized Power App, I will insert a button, call it save. On select of this button, all I have to do is submit my form, which is called SharePoint Form 1. And this button, I will set its visible property to not of is blank param ID. Once again, I'll save and publish. This time, when I make a selection on the page, I get the save button option. I'll change the status to planned and click save. It has updated it. The status is gone to planned. However, the web part has not made the updates. That's because the user will have to initiate a refresh of this web page in order to see that change. Since this is an iframe, the only way to refresh the parent would be through some form of JavaScript code. There is no direct option available in Power Apps. However, for this form experience, once the form is submitted, there's a property called onSuccess that runs when the form is successfully submitted. It calls a function called requestHide. In the SharePoint List context, when I make updates and I save, it will submit the form. RequestHide gets triggered, so it actually hides that panel. But in the web page context, requestHide will not suffice. So if that parameter ID is blank, I will continue to do what the code does. Else, I will go ahead and exit the app by using the exit function. And I will go ahead and use the launch function to relaunch that web page. My page here is this Modern SharePoint page, so I will copy the URL and paste it right here. No parameters. I will use launch target.replace. Once again, save and publish. This time, when I make the selection and make an update and click save, you will see it in action. Now, even though I used the launch function to replace the existing window, since it's running in an iframe, it goes ahead and launches another browser tab for me. But from a user standpoint, they will see the updates right away. Now, the beauty of this approach is that when we add it to this modern page, we get a lot of additional capabilities. For example, list formatting. The user can see some details, make a selection, the app will load. I can look at all the details, make modifications, and save my changes. All the SharePoint views are available here, so I can group the content, accordingly make my selections. Plus, since these are connected web parts, I'm not limited to one connection. Here's a scenario in which I have a list, a library, and an embed web part, which is my Power App, that are all interconnected with each other. If I make a selection here, it will open up that specific item in my Power App, and at the same time, my document library will also be filtered based on the ID of the item that was selected, so I can see which documents are related to this specific list item, and at the same time, I can make updates to the properties of the list item, all in one go. Let's take this one step further. One of the biggest challenges in Power Apps is uploading documents, multiple documents on the fly, large file sizes. Here, I have my interconnected set of web parts. My documents library has document sets. The document sets here are related to the list items based upon the ID of the item. If I make a selection to the list item, the Power App will load the properties associated with that list item, which I can change on the fly. At the same time, the web part at the bottom has filtered to that specific document set. I can select that document set and see all the details within that document set. And here, I can upload files. I can upload multiple files in one go, and this is leveraging the native SharePoint functionality. Or I can simply drag and drop files in here. So all of these files are being related to the specific incident that I have selected. The concept is very similar. However, here I have multiple screens. To get to a specific item, I have to select, And then I get to the details of that specific item. So the key here is to pass that parameter dynamically and perform deep linking to a specific screen. My screens that have the form control is the details screen that has the details form and the edit screen that has the edit form. The item property for both of these form controls is the selected item of the gallery on the home screen. And to perform deep linking, I would like to change this to a variable which can be set either by passing a parameter or when the user makes a selection in this gallery. For this gallery, there is a property called onSelect. Right now it's only navigating to the details screen. Right before this, I will use the set function to set a variable called varItem, and I will set it to this item, which is the context of the selected item. So if I preview my app and make a selection, for example, phone connectivity, this will redirect me to the details screen and set that variable context. For the form control on the details screen, if I head over to the item property, it's browse gallery 1.selected. I will change this to varItem. So it shows the context of the selected item. And when the user clicks edit, it takes me to the edit screen, wherein we have the edit form, the item context here as well. I will update to varItem. Now to deep link directly to a specific screen, which would be my detail screen in this case, I would still need to set that variable based on the ID parameter that's being passed. On the app object, there's a property called onStart. If not of is blank, param ID, then I would like you to set that variable, which is varItem, to look up my data source, which is issue tracker, where the ID is equal to value of param ID. The app object has a start screen property. I will check to see if the parameter ID is blank. In that case, I would like to take the user directly to the landing screen of the app, which is the browse screen. So I'll select that. And if this parameter is available, in that case, I will take the user directly to the details screen. So I'll go ahead and save and publish this app. If I run this app directly from Power Apps, it will launch the app and take me directly to the home screen. That's because there is no ID that's being passed. However, if I was to pass an ID parameter to this, you will note how it directly deep links to the details screen. I will add my Embed Web part, connect to my issue tracker list web part, my iframe code, same as before, width, height, passed the ID dynamically as a parameter and grabbed the app ID from the details of the Power App. I'll click on publish, make a selection. It will deep link directly to that selected item. Now, once again, if I was to make a change and submit, the update will be performed. However, the web part will not refresh. On success of the edit form submission, if the parameter is blank, in that case, you go back to the previous screen, else launch that web page. I will copy the URL of my SharePoint page, plug it in here, replace, and also ensure that I exit the app. I'll make sure I publish my app again. This time, when I make a selection, let's say we change the status for this item to completed and submit, it will launch the web page again and we can see the update. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching.